right. Hi, everybody from Scottsdale, Arizona. Thanks for joining us and kind of sitting where we were last time in our second meeting together, our happy hour, Pick Industry happy hour. Real quick, I just do a quick introduction to myself. So I'll tell you real quick about why. I see there's one or two new peeps on the call. So just a little bit about why we're doing this, and then I'll introduce Jeff, and Jeff will introduce Anna, and then we'll start from there. We've got a great agenda for today. So my name is Eric Greenwald. I am the president of Grimaldi's Pizzeria. So we are a 45 store chain here in, we're based out of Scottsdale, Arizona. So we have 42 brick and mortars, two ghost kitchens, or three ghost kitchens, and then we have some deals that we're working on internationally and domestically for franchising. So that's a little bit about Grimaldi's, but a little bit about why and the PIC Council, the Pizzeria Industry Council, and why we started and why we're all getting together. So in 2013, real fast, Marla Topliff, who was the president of Rosati's Pizza and a very intricate part of the NRA, decided to call a few of us together. And when we got together for the first time, there was 14 pizzerias, 14 chains represented, and it grew exponentially very quickly. And the goal really was for us to get together and, besides talk pizza, but strategy and, some tactical and a little bit of everything about how to make our brands, how to make our segment of the industry better. And she succeeded, and the council grew and grew. Then probably in the about 7 or 8 years after, we kind of took a little bit of a downturn, and we went a little bit different direction. And then about 2-3 years ago, Lo came back to me, and we got together and said, hey, let's get this going again. So I asked Jeff Goodman, who's also a part of this, and now we are the co-chairs for the PIC Council. And we've decided to do these happy hours and then, talk about things that are going on. I know last time, this segment, we were talking about third-party delivery. Last time we were talking about the ghost kitchens and whatnot. And I'll tell you, I learned a lot. And some of the ideas that many of you had were great. So we figured this time we would talk about third-party delivery, and because obviously it's a big part of what we're doing pre-COVID, during COVID, and everything else. So it's important to have some conversations, and we do have some great segments coming up for the next few months as well. So with that, I will turn it over to Jeff. He can do a little housekeeping and introduce Anna, and then we can get into our great agenda for today.
Great, thanks, Eric, and great to see everybody again, and several of you who were on the webinar last month, and look forward to, hopefully we're getting closer to be able to have some of these in person at upcoming conventions or unfortunately, the NRA show was canceled again for this year, but look forward to seeing everybody in person at a future date. But yeah, for housekeeping piece, obviously, this is meant to be interactive. This is meant to be an exchange and a great learning opportunity for everybody on the call, but we also learn from each other. We're fortunate to have a great speaker today who I'll introduce in a second. But go ahead and unmute yourself as you have questions. Keep this free flowing. Knowing Anna well, who's our speaker for today, I'm so appreciating the questions or feedback that you have along the way. And that's really one of the objectives of the Pizzeria Council in general, which is to facilitate conversation amongst operators. We are all running our independent businesses, but at the same time, we're all in this together, and there's so much we can learn from each other and each other's experiences. The meeting will be recorded, and as we did last month, we'll distribute it after this is concluded. But with that, as Eric mentioned, we wanted to talk a little bit about third-party delivery today. And with us is Anna Tauzin. I'll introduce Anna. I should give a proper introduction to myself too. So Jeff Goodman, I'm the CEO of Fresh Brothers Pizza. We're a Southern California-based pizza brand. We have 21 units in around LA County and down to Orange County. If you find yourself down this way, look me up, and I'm happy to take care of you for some great feedback. But we're thrilled to have Anna with us today. So Anna is somebody that Eric and I, and certainly Lo, have known for a number of years in the industry and had a chance to spend some time with, and really is one of the most insightful and intelligent people within the restaurant world currently. And I'll throw a lot of flattery your way, Anna. We think you're great. So we'll keep it coming, right? Keep it coming. But Anna today is the Chief Revenue and Innovation Officer for the Texas Restaurant Association. and really is one of the people and thought leaders that I look to in the industry on a regular basis to learn what's going on in the space, learn trends and directions, and really appreciate all of her insights. So she was gracious enough to join us today. She's done a lot of work within the third-party delivery space, tracking the changes and evolutions in the marketplace, and she's going to share with us some data, some insights, and then kind of help facilitate a conversation amongst all of us to keep learning more about what's going on. So with that, thank you, Anna. Thrilled to have you. And I guess I'll turn over to you. How about that?
Sure. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Lo. It's so nice to be among friends. Honestly, I recognize so many of the names that are in the chat window right now. It's really nice to see you guys again. I used to work for the National Restaurant Association years ago. I've been with Texas now for 4 years. And as a native Texan, I'm really happy to be back home, as is my mother. But before I get started, I have a pizza joke for you guys. Stop me if you've heard this one before. Did you hear the guy who took a second job as a pizza chef? He needed the dough. Okay, I'm sorry. I just posted it in the chat too, so that you guys can save that one and use it down the line. I know it was really good. First, I would like to know a little bit, if you guys are using the chat window, how many of you have locations in Texas? As a representative of the Texas Restaurant Association, it's always really good to know. I know, Eric, thank you very much, sir. To who all is involved in Texas, because that's near and dear to my heart, of course. I have been following third-party delivery companies forever, it feels like. I mean, I remember whenever I worked for National, DoorDash actually was one of the first companies we hosted in Startup Alley whenever that project was going on at the national show. So that was back when they were like a baby company. And even then we all knew like this was really going to affect the industry. And the same way that, you know, some of the sites like Expedia and Travelocity and stuff really disrupted the travel industry, third-party delivery did the same thing for restaurants. Unfortunately, restaurants sort of got left out of the conversation early on. And so now they are somewhat at the mercy of third-party delivery companies when it comes to those really high commission rates, which I will talk a little bit about. But it still is kind of an open playing field. And now that we've seen a lot more changes legislatively that affect third-party delivery companies and their business practices, they're more willing to listen to you and negotiate with you as operators to sort of come to a mutual understanding or agreement. Which was just great. You know, it's great that they're open to having those conversations. I want to talk a little bit about what I'm seeing sort of in the landscape legislatively as well. And if I missed anything, please just chime in on the chat. Let me know whatever we're missing out on. The first thing is about commission caps in general, right? We know that commission caps really are all over the place. If you just sign up for one of the third-party delivery companies now, chances are they're going to quote you around 30, 35, even higher percentage for those commission rates. Now, you are more than welcome to negotiate those down, and I would encourage you to do so. Many people sign exclusivity agreements and sometimes push those commission rates down as well. But traditionally, they're going to be pretty high. And because of that, and because we've been able to demonstrate to people in city government and state government thus far that when you break down the sale and how much the restaurant is actually getting from the sale through a third-party delivery company, these legislators they've set up and take notice, and they've decided that they want to implement commission cap rates. It's a little challenging out there to keep track of everything. And I'm sure those of you, especially like Eric, who have locations in multiple cities and states, it can be tricky to keep up with. So definitely staying part of National Restaurant Association is a great way to do that, but also being involved with your state restaurant association. Sometimes they know the information a little bit faster than national just because they're closer to it. We have seen commission cap regulation come up in cities like Cleveland, LA, New York, San Francisco, Chicago, Philadelphia, St. Louis, and on and on and on. We do see it happening more at the city level versus the state level. And there's lots of different reasons for that. But some people have been successful in getting these commission cap rates passed. Some people have not. Some is for a limited amount of time, a year, 2 years, and then they're going to evaluate based on that. Some it's indefinite. You see a lot of money being spent from these third-party delivery companies to try and protect their business and not let those commission caps happen. but they're failing, frankly, because they're not telling a really good story. They're not able to justify the really high commission rates that they're passing on to restaurants. And I think there's some interesting school of thought there, because if you look at any study done by Black Box Intelligence or Technomic or any of those, all of their data says, in fact, I think US Foods actually has a good report out right now too. It all says that the tolerance from the consumer of paying a higher fee is pretty great. So they're actually willing to pay more than I think that I know the third party delivery companies are pushing onto them. And that's the reason, one of the reasons they're trying to do that is because they are able to stay competitive when it comes to the discoverability side of things. So a third party delivery company, right, they have two sides of their business. They have to go out there and compete for consumer eyeballs and clicks, and then they have to go out and compete and try and get merchants signed up on their platforms as well. So they're really trying to weigh the politics back and forth of those two things. So they're willing to, try all sorts of stuff to make that happen. And one of the big things is they really try to keep those rates low for consumers. But as I mentioned, the data all says that consumers actually can tolerate a lot more than what they're being charged right now. So just keep that in mind. Here in Texas, we decided to do things a little bit differently. We had originally talked with legislators and the governor about doing commission caps, but that never would have gone over in Texas, frankly. I mean, we are a pro-business state. We believe in the free market, and that never would have flown with our governor and our Ken Paxton, our attorney general. Anyone would have enjoyed that. So we decided to not do that. So we actually have introduced a bill instead that requires there to be an agreement between the third-party delivery company and the restaurateur. One of the big problems we've heard from a lot of different operators is that third party is listing your restaurant on their platform without your permission. There's been plenty of intellectual property lawsuits brought to those third-party delivery companies about this. And nothing's really changed. They still go about it. They still do it. Even people that have requested, that their restaurant not be listed on the platform, they're still listed. It's a problem. And every third party delivery company I talk to says that they're working on it to try and make it a little bit easier, but it doesn't really feel like it's priority number one for them. So that's something we really wanted to focus on, is make sure that there actually is an agreement in place between third party delivery and the restaurant operator. We feel really good about that one. We've got bipartisan support here at the state level, and the governor supports it as well. So we have every anticipation that that's going to go forward. But I have a question actually for Eric and Jeff. You guys have locations in California, right? Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So Jeff, can you tell us a little bit about Prop 22 and what was that and what happened and how does that affect your business, if at all?
Yeah, so hopefully you can hear me okay. So Prop 22 is a piece of legislation that passed, which brought on significantly more fees for some of the third-party delivery companies. And unfortunately, at least DoorDash, for those of you who use DoorDash Drive versus simply receive orders on DoorDash, because these delivery companies have incurred greater fees in terms of what they need to pay the drivers themselves, DoorDash specifically has made the corporate decision to not incur any additional fees or pass along any of the additional expense that they incur direct to the consumer on their DoorDash platform. They've chosen to pass along all those fees onto those people who subscribe to DoorDash Drive. So they're passing all of those fees on to brands like ours who supplement our own native delivery using DoorDash Drive, which I think everybody can appreciate just simply in turn forces brands, again, like us, to have to consider at least taking price, which then feeds the beast and pushes people right back onto third-party delivery platforms, or at least narrows the gap in expense or cost between a native platform like ours and DoorDash. So, it's been really unfortunate. So I'm sure as others experience, our DoorDash Drive fees are going up by $2 a delivery, which is not insignificant. We directionally use DoorDash about 600 times a week. So that's a big, simply additional expense that we have to work hard to try to offset. So, but my concern with it, Anna, as we talked earlier, was simply they, as a company, not being willing to negotiate and simply said, take it or leave it. You can either leave DoorDash Drive or you can absorb the cost. So interesting times.
Yeah, I'm ready for some precedented times, right? After all these unprecedented ones. Eric, did you want to add anything to the Prop 22 conversation?
No, Jeff covered it perfectly. We're dealing with the same. I only have one location currently in California. I'm actually looking at 2 or 3 more right now. But when things like that happen, about the only thing I had that would actually deter me from looking at locations there, because we were looking at 2 locations for ghost kitchens, and considering that DoorDash or the third party would be the main source of that. I mean, that something like that has made us, when we're redoing our pro formas and modeling and looking at the additional costs, I mean, yeah, that could deter us from going. I mean, that something that small could make it or break it.
Yeah, absolutely. $2 doesn't sound like much, but I mean, when you add it up, like Jeff presented, like it does cost a lot over time.
And to him, 600 times, a week. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot of money.
Yeah, it is. That's like college right there, right? Okay, so I do have some data to share with you guys, and I apologize. I was not able to get permission to share the screen with you, but I can at least talk you through some numbers that I think are pretty important and you should know about. And that's some off-premises numbers. This data comes from Black Box Intelligence. If you guys are not signed up with them, I would encourage you to look at it. They offer some really great competitive data, more so than I can share with you today. But nationwide, they took a look at sort of the off-premises mix as a percentage of sales from all restaurants, not just pizza, but all restaurants around the United States. And back a year ago, can't believe it's been a year, at the beginning of March, for limited service, off-premises sales as a percentage of total sales was about 72%. And for full service, it was around 14%. Around the end of March, when all dining rooms closed around the country, mostly, that all shot up to about 98%. And it stayed pretty even between limited service and full service for a while until around the beginning of May. And then full service restaurants really dropped off when it came to offering off premises. That could be for a variety of different reasons. Us down here in the great state of Texas opened our dining rooms on May 1st. So maybe that's why we saw fewer sales from off premises, but limited service stayed really strong. So they've stayed really strong throughout the pandemic. Some of the numbers that I'm seeing right now are from like around the beginning, mid-October. It dipped a little bit down to 84%, but we're now seeing it grow right back up. It was at 86% at the end of the year and is looking to hold steady around 90%. And that's really because of the consumer, right? The consumers at this point have been trained, which is great, congratulations, on how to purchase things off premise. And they're using third-party delivery for a lot of those sales. Something that's really interesting, though, that Black Box also measures is satisfaction rating. So a net sentiment, basically, that measures satisfaction among all different types of restaurants. And it's dragging down. And they think that it's because of off-premises not delivering the same kind of experience that consumers are used to. And so their measure of sentiment, their satisfaction sentiment, has been dragging down since the beginning of the pandemic. And it's specifically related to off-premises. Now, you can't assume that like consumers are not sort of saying, I'm not satisfied because they're not able to dine in, possibly, but it's kind of interesting to think about that. And it might be something that we can talk about a little bit, is how to bring that brand experience to your consumers, even though you're using third-party delivery. Jeff, I know you were just working on a branding workshop today, so maybe that came up in your conversations, but that's really important, as we know, is to keep that brand distinct even when you're doing your own delivery and then when you pass it off to third party. And maybe we can talk a little bit about that in a minute. Okay, scroll. So the other piece that was really interesting is that the value sentiment from consumers also fell with the pandemic. So that's kind of interesting. The way they measure value is feedback of people saying, the prices are way too high, the food is really good, but the price has gone up a lot. Someone said, I understand we're going through a pandemic, but for these prices, things should be held to a higher standard. So some frustration since from a few consumers, several hundred thousand, on what they're experiencing going through the pandemic. So that's something I think is really interesting too. And so when you see satisfaction sentiment and value sentiment going down, it could just be the pandemic is just making people exhausted, right? And so they're not feeling really good about the experience overall. But it could also be that, the price is too high and their tolerance is just not going to keep up with that. The other piece that I thought was really interesting is a consumer reported that the menu that they saw on the third-party delivery app for different restaurants only included certain entrees, whereas their in-store experience had more entrees. And that's normal. We talked to a lot of restaurateurs and coached them honestly to do that, to limit their menu whenever you're thinking about off-premises sales for pizza. Clearly it's a little bit different, but it is something that we talk to with a lot of restaurateurs is maybe don't send fried food, in a styrofoam clamshell. Doesn't really work out.
Anna, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I did hear, and I got a lot of feedback, especially here locally in Scottsdale, but a lot of those complaints came the fact that those third-party delivery, especially when the pandemic first happened, weren't prepared. They didn't have the drivers, they didn't have enough people. And I'll tell you, I would click on it and it would just say your orders will be 3 to 3.5 hours, 4 hours, and right there will just make anybody with 2 kids who are hungry and everything else, and I can't go out and get food, or I don't, their grocery stores were empty. I know that probably contributed considerable to that, to those complaints. So the fact that they weren't prepared, and nobody was prepared, but they especially, who we all called upon, they didn't have enough drivers. I mean, there was no one else to really hire at that point. So I think that contributed a lot to it.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And before I move on, did anyone else experience any sort of feedback like that from their consumers when it came to ordering from third party that you want to share? Okay, that's fine. You don't have to talk. Well, and one other thing that I wanted to yes, sir.
I will share one thing. I think the one piece that all of us experienced was the shift towards food safety, at the start of the pandemic as it relates specifically to third parties. I think, and it'll stay in place, but not sealing a box with a safety sticker just will not be accepted going forward. I think that's the new normal, right? You got to seal your boxes. You got to give people security. Now, I will say, at least for us in LA, where we relied heavily on our native delivery platform to do deliveries. What we've seen is as we've supplemented for a rise in business with DoorDash Drive, for example, we've seen a general acceptance, of the use of third-party drivers versus our native. And it's sort of at first when we started using them, it was, I prefer a Fresh Brothers driver, but now it's very accepted. And we're getting just as many compliments. Our guest service scores are the same. And we've done a good job, I would say, internally of training our DoorDashers on what they can expect and what we expect of them. So I think that's been an interesting shift. And I think they've gotten better at it. And I think we've gotten better about making sure that we're putting our product in the best position possible to be delivered hot and fresh and in one piece.
Yeah. I think it's interesting what people get used to during a pandemic, right? So they might be just totally fine with the third-party delivery drivers now. It does seem commonplace at this point. I mean, we know that in 2020 over 2019, there was an increase in 25% of third-party delivery orders, which was 45 million Americans. That's a lot of people, and 25% increase in anything in 1 year is enormous. Like that's a huge jump. But I'm glad you bring up the idea of cleanliness, Jeff, because one thing, so one of the measures that we take is related to ambiance, right, within a restaurant and what people rate as important versus not. The second highest rated subcategory in the ambiance grand category was cleanliness. So the first was appearance, second was cleanliness, third was decor, fourth was light, and fifth was music. So cleanliness is really, really up there. And it's possible that they equate appearance with cleanliness too. But yeah, I thought that was really, really fascinating. And then in terms of third-party adoption for among consumers. It's up, like I mentioned, it grew over 25%, between 2019 and 2020. It won't surprise you to know that Gen Z is up an enormous amount, as are millennials, and then Gen Z and baby boomers our Gen X and baby boomers are also keeping up with it too. So it's just across the board. Everyone's using it. People are trained themselves. Frankly, the third-party delivery companies have done a really great job of reaching consumers and helping them understand how these apps work. So it makes it a little bit easier to get to your food. So that's all the data I really wanted to share. I think everyone knows like it's up and everyone's using it like crazy. So let's talk a little bit about some really good best practices together. And the first thing I want to start off with, Jeff, because I've been fascinated ever since you and I had that original conversation, is around the paid subscribers. So within each of these different third-party delivery companies, they offer, for the most part, they all offer a paid subscription model. And that paid subscription model allows them to not pay delivery fees whenever they order from the platform. It still means that the restaurateur is paying the commission rates for sure, but the consumer themselves don't pay the delivery fees. And so for DoorDash, it's Dash Pass. Postmates has Postmates Unlimited. Grubhub has Grubhub Plus. Uber Eats has Eats Pass. They're all sort of the same thing, and they're all around the $10 price point. I think this one's really fascinating because we do know that those consumers, they eat a lot more delivery than other people. If they've made the choice to pay a monthly subscription fees and to avoid delivery fees, that means that they are dedicated consumers to those platforms. And Jeff, I thought you might talk a little bit about the landscape within Fresh Brothers and what your delivery is laid out, but specifically around the kind of action that you're seeing from those paid subscribers.
Yeah, sure. It was an interesting data point that I shared, and probably all of you have looked at similar statistics. But it's interesting. Our third-party sales have grown tremendously, especially over the past year, and especially in Southern California, where the lockdown's been very lengthy, shall we say. But one of the things that's very interesting, I think we're all in the game of trying to win people back onto our native ordering platform, so we can control the data and we can manage that data better. As we looked into ours, we're trying to understand what that universe is of people who are ordering from third-party providers. And what's interesting that we found is that 52% of our third-party orders are coming from people who are who pay a monthly subscription to be a part of those platforms. So more than half of our third-party orders are coming from DoorDash Pass holders, if you will, or subscribers to Postmates or Grubhub or what have you. So it narrows our window of opportunity for those people who we can more easily migrate back onto our native channels and our native platforms in order to control that data. So, one of the big practices we're going through now, of course, we're taking the obligatory put the marketing materials in the bag or the box topper on the box, and taking every advantage of every opportunity we have to get our brand in front of people as that food gets delivered, but also looking at other ways that we can secure data. And I think, not to jump ahead, Anna, but I think that's the big emerging field, is finding those technology companies that can help us secure some of that third-party data. And that's how we really combat and win when it comes to getting people back to our native platforms. So not we'll get 100%, but anybody we can, we'll win with.
So I'm curious to know how many of you, and just respond in the chat or by raising your hand using the Zoom, how many of you are specifically marketing towards those paid subscribers on third-party delivery? I'm gonna guess it's just Jeff. But having multiple conversations with third-party delivery companies all the time, I know that this is actually like a pretty amazing thing. And DoorDash is, Jeff, I don't know if you got the message today, but DoorDash is getting ready to change their structure, their pay structure, so that they're splitting themselves into 3 tiers going forward. So there's going to be a low commission rate around 15%, but then that means you do not get to target the Dash Passers. And then there's another rate, I think at 20% or something like that, that will actually target Dash Passers. And then there's an even higher one that gives you all the bells and whistles. And it's not uncommon to see that. I mean, Favor, a Texas-based delivery company, they do the same kind of thing, where if you are willing to pay a higher commission rate, you get a lot more marketing benefits. Oh, Kelly, where are you that you don't have any third-party delivery companies in your area? That is shocking. You should tell Eric, because now he's going to go hustle and make a new third-party delivery company called Grimaldi's Delivers. Because that'll be a really good opportunity. Anyway, I'm just saying, like,
I'm a little different. This is Kelly Williams. I'm much smaller than everyone on this seminar, and the same with the first one with the pizza. I like to learn from other people. We have about 8 businesses, and we have a movie theater, we have a bowling center, and we have an ice cream shop. We have a convenience store. So right now, the area that I am in, there are a lot of restaurants, a lot. And there was no third delivery driver service in our area the past year. So you had restaurants that were trying to do food, and we could not get anyone. I've kind of reached out to to Uber and some of those others, and I don't think they're very interested in our area, but there's a market for a smaller community like ours. And again, everyone on here, I think, is probably in a major city. I grew up around Dallas, Texas. But I was hoping to learn from some of you, and it might not be answered on this seminar. You know, is there there's a niche there for smaller areas that if there was a way not to have these big corporate third driver parties. So I'm here just to learn from you guys and listen.
You know, Kelly, I'm sorry, Anna, we have a location up in Flagstaff, which is northern Arizona here. And it's a small community. It really is. They call it the big little town. And forever we could not get, we had no Uber, no, whatnot. But there was a woman up there who actually decided to start doing delivery. And she started a very small little delivery, and she had about, I think about 4 or 5, people, and they were, delivering, and they had, the bags for the pizza and whatever else. And we used them for a while, and it wasn't long before somebody blinked and DoorDash and Uber got in there. But I would say that there was, it grew I think you'd be surprised on how quick Uber or DoorDash will enter a market, especially like yours or Flagstaff, because now up in Flagstaff, I'd say out of the 3 or 4 main ones, 3 are up there now. So they catch on.
Go ahead.
Oh no, that was it. I was just saying they catch on very quickly to areas that they have potential growth in.
Well, and that's what I needed to hear. I had posted on our social media business sites comments such as, I sure wish there was some type of third party driver service in here. I know my restaurant would use it. I had actually copied some of the other local restaurants who were all more than interested, because like you said, you downsize your menu, you start off small. I like the ghost kitchen idea because it allows me to spin off some of my other things that I do. I have, an amazing commercial kitchen with my bowling center. It's called Striker's Grill. So I could spin off a wing division. I could spin off my pizza division, have my own little menus. So I learned a lot from the last seminar. Really, really, really enjoyed that. And the amount of people that commented that they were like, oh my gosh, we wish there was a service because we would get this from your place or from this other restaurant. But I didn't know if individual people could do it. And if I were to encourage that, is there some type of insurance I'm assuming on their own they can get a delivery driver insurance? And then would you recommend they have a background check? That was my worry, is say somebody approaches me and says, hey, I'm willing to deliver these 5 restaurants within a 20-mile radius. In order for me to say, hey, I'm interested, obviously you're not Uber or DoorDash. What did you ask that lady to have? Did she have a background check? Did she have insurance that made you feel safe to use her, Eric?
I don't know all the answers to that, Kelly.
Okay.
To be honest, I know that they need insurance, and I would always recommend a background check, especially on the driving part, if it was going to be your own business. but it's definitely something I think that there is somewhere to go to find. I mean, I'd probably turn to Anna and say, is there somewhere to go to find out what all the needs are? I do know what we require at Grimaldis, and it doesn't matter if when we were looking at the local small up in Flagstaff or Uber, DoorDash. I mean, a certain amount of insurance. We like to meet our representative and who we're going to call to if there's issues. We talk to them about how they're going to deliver. We test them. And then we want to learn about their company or who they are, whether it be a company or as a person, because their culture's got to fit ours. They have to match who we are as a company.
Okay.
But again, there's a lot more to it than that. But again, I would probably turn to somebody that knows more about
this helps a lot. This helps a lot because I know the local restaurants and the owners, and I can also work with my chamber a little bit and see if we could come up with, some way of maybe advertising for a driver that would be willing to service maybe 4 of our local restaurants, including me. But this has helped me. This has given me some ideas. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. I love Ben. He posted in the chat 937 Delivers. It's a really cool model. If you haven't taken a look at it, it's a co-op that uses local restaurant labor basically to employ restaurant people as drivers. So they still do have to have a separate kind of insurance, and that's something that they need to take out on their own. If they have any questions, I mean, they can talk to their own auto insurance or their PNC insurance or something like that. I'm also posting this. This is a local group here in Austin, and I can't remember what it's called. It's just like some random Facebook group with nearly 18,000 members, and it's called Runner City. And it's really bizarre, but it's like people post needs and then people respond immediately like, oh, I can go do that for you. So someone says, hey, can you pick up 2 dozen donuts for me at, Mrs. Johnson's Bakery, which is a real place and it's delicious. And someone responds and says, yes, they'll take it on. And it grew really organically. So it's a really interesting model. And honestly, Kelly, if you have a tight knit community in your West Virginia town and people look on Facebook for stuff like that, it might work for you guys. So just something else to consider, and maybe something to put in front of your chamber to see if they would support something like that as well. So, okay. It's good to know that we have some people with lots and lots of locations and some people with just one location. That's very helpful, honestly. How is alcohol delivery going for you guys? Eric, would you mind talking a little bit about that? And then I'd love to hear from everyone else in the group too. Are you delivering alcohol right now? And is that increasing your sales overall?
Yeah, I might not be the good one to call on that, Anna, because we're not doing it right now. And we are looking into it currently. So we've done some, we've definitely looked at it. We went this year when we did redo our whole wine and spirit. I was really impressed by what all of the different companies have come out with the cans and all the different offerings of drinks and menus, and that part really was great. I mean, at first it was like everybody was trying to bottle their own drink, and it just seemed, to Jeff's point earlier, it didn't seem very sanitary. I wouldn't order something like that, but now that it's coming in a can or whatnot, I don't know. I mean, for me, maybe not something for me, but I know that there is a need and a want, and we're getting a lot of that. So we are just scratching the surface on this. So I'll ask anybody else who's on the call who's doing it to maybe talk through what they're doing, how it was, how did you set it up, and how successful has it been?
Yeah, I see Chuck is responding. He's been doing a few bottle beers and White Claws. Great. Sounds like a good Saturday night. The pickup here has been enormous. Like, people are actually doing really well with it. And we actually got an emergency order passed that allowed restaurants to sell mixed cocktails to go too. So they actually were, to your point, Eric, mixing it up in a jar and pouring it into smaller jars, and it was totally fine. I mean, it was mostly sanitary. I think they did a really good job in cleaning the bottles, and some of them have done a really great job, and they came out with their own little cocktail line. And honestly, we didn't have much pushback from the package stores on it either. More people drinking is more people drinking, so that worked for them. Okay, I'm reading Kelly's thing. Anyone else selling alcohol though? Jeff?
We are, yeah. We're delivering beer and wine out of our restaurants. We have a partnership with Bev, which is kind of an upstart, wine company. They've been great to work with. I will say the velocity of movement that we're having out there with, beer and wine, we do Peroni and Blue Moon, basics like that, along with Bev. I would say the benefit to us is more in social media side of things, where we're getting some more exposure by leveraging those partnerships. than it is in direct sales. So it's been nice. It's been a creative what we do. We're not rushing to more stores because of the beer we've sold, but I think it's a nice complementary thing. Certainly it was great during the summer, during the height of the lockdown. We have a lot of a bunch of stores in a relatively near beach community. So we did a lot of deliveries to the beach with alcohol. So, which I was one of those people asking for stores to deliver alcohol and beer and pizza to me at the beach. So, so situationally, it's been really beneficial, and easy to set up and get going. So, will we sustain it after this is more passive? I don't know. We'll have to look into that and make a judge. But beer and wine was never a huge part of our offering anyway. So, but I think during the pandemic and during the lockdown, especially in LA, it's been nice, and it's been a good awareness piece, help people kind of set the tone for at least creating the idea in their head of what their evening could look like.
Yeah. Yeah. For a lot of people I know, whenever they're doing the third-party setup, the third-party delivery companies and even online ordering companies can help you do this, where the suggestive sell happens towards the end of the sale. And third-party delivery companies do this really well, actually, where they're able to suggest other items to go along with your ticket order. And so if you work with your partner on that to ask them to, add some of these alcoholic beverages as an add-on before they complete the sale, that is probably the best time to do that. I agree. It can be a really great marketing tool, though. I mean, especially if you partner with any of those alcohol companies and say, hey, let's do something together and do some sort of promotion. They usually have really deep pockets when it comes to marketing. And so it's nice to be able to utilize them to help your brand out a little bit too. So let's talk about some of the marketing tactics that people are using on third party. What's worked well so far? I know we were talking before about, giveaways or percentage off or anything like that. Eric or Jeff or anyone else, you guys want to talk a little bit about some of the marketing things you've tried with third party?
So we've been very successful at the ghost kitchens, Anna, with the when Grimaldi's picks up, or we do the free delivery. So we pick up the full commission on the delivery, and I will tell you, and it's the one we did with Uber, and I just re-signed for another 3 months, was we pay delivery for your first order. So if you've never ordered from us, we pick up the full delivery charge. What was interesting is, and we just got the new statistics this morning, and it went up. Originally, it was like 25, 26. It went up to 32% of all of the people that ordered. I could not believe the number. 32% of all the people ordered again within 7 days of that first order. So if you think about it, it was quite a few orders. I mean, obviously with the ghost kitchens, it's mainly, but we picked up that first commission, that first cost of the delivery, and 32% of those people reordered again within 7 days. So that was very successful for us. We haven't done it at the brick and mortar. So, we haven't done a lot of that, but as for a successful marketing, that was extremely successful in the ghost kitchens.
Yeah, I
Anyone
bet.
else?
Okay. It also might be helpful to know, I know, Kelly, you guys are in a different situation, and Deborah as well. You're not using third-party delivery yet, but could y'all add in the chat who you're using right now for third-party delivery, just in case we can see if there are other sort of regional brands. I know Waiter was a smaller brand. They've since grown quite a bit, but there's some other regional brands out there. It might be helpful for us to know kind of who's out there and what state you're in as well. So we can identify, and maybe there is someone out there for Kelly that she can use. Okay, so let's talk technology, because I love that subject. And Jeff, you had some really good topics earlier this week whenever we sort of went over this. The idea of pulling all those orders together, right? I mean, we've all talked about iPad Hell, of course, many times, and there are some really great affordable options out there right now to pull together all your third-party delivery orders. It used to be only a couple, right? There was Chally who started, there was Ordermark, but there's since been a few more that have popped up. So Jeff, I thought you might share your story there on who you're exploring as well.
Yeah. So, So I mean, we've actually now directly integrated right into our new point of sale that we're launching, all the third-party platforms. So we're directly integrated there. There are others And I will type the name into the chat in just a second when I refresh my memory on exactly who it was. But there's a couple that are doing a really good job of scraping data and pulling it into one dashboard. I'm not sure anybody's using a data aggregator like that, other than it's Checkmate or Ordermark, a company like that. There's a couple out there. Otter is one, and then there's another company in Texas called Yourfair is the other. Thanks, Eric. And that's the one we're looking at. And I think for us, data is king. So if we can start getting consumer data, if we can find a way to start scraping that into our systems and being able to remarket back to the consumer, that's really, I think, where that we're getting, and be able to kind of add data we're getting from third parties into a guest profile in our loyalty database and being a little smarter with that. So, Chuck, if you're with Yourfair, I think you just typed that in. If you have any comments on Yourfair, I'd love to hear about it, and maybe for the group, sort of sharing anything proprietary. Not put you on the spot. I apologize. I just saw you type it in.
No, we've been with them. We were one of the very first with them too. And, it's really a game changer to be integrated all the way through to the cooks. So we've been really happy. It's especially having it set up completely before the pandemic hit. And we were able to really add the added business very easily with it. So again, there's so much data coming in from different sources. We would love it to be, all on one dashboard and such, and we're getting there, but we're still leaving that. The other stumbling block I'm finding is changing menus. It's just a slow process. If you want to add a new item and you get it out to all 5 or 6 or whatever you're running and your aggregator, that's a tough step.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
good to know,
indeed.
Cooper. Okay, or I called you Cooper. Peter Cooperstein. I just saw Cooper and I was like, I'm going to abbreviate his name. And it's funny, actually, I talked with Yourfair after you and I chatted about them, Jeff, and I just wanted to know their technology a little more. Plus, they're right here down the street, so it was good to get to know them. The people working there are very impressive. They come from Single Platform and Yext and some of those big data companies as well. So they seem to really understand the importance of data as too. So that felt really, really good. So definitely worth taking a look at. Otter was one of the other ones that you mentioned too. But some sort of aggregator is really going to help. And like Chuck was saying, like it's a game changer, really. Whenever you have it all together, it helps your staff, it helps you organize things a little bit. Eric, were you going to say something?
No, I saw Peter jump in on that, and I was the only thing I was going to ask is did either of you meet with Otter, and how do they compare if anybody was looking at the two brands? I mean, or did you just go with Yourfair?
Well, we jumped in, but it was so early in the process. I did look at Otter, and they were all brand new at the time. There were like 4 different ones. So it was, it's not a fair comparison now, I think, because we're not going back, and because it's working, we're not going back and looking at Otter. So I couldn't tell you enough because it's been 2 years.
Okay. Peter, were you going to say anything?
Yeah, we've tried Otter. We're Otter's connected to Cloud Kitchens company, and we have 3 locations in the Cloud Kitchens, and so you automatically are on Otter there. But you can also use their tablet separately. It's similar to Yourfair. On the existing POS that we have, which is the LaSalle InTouch POS, Yourfair has the order integration, whereas Otter doesn't have that. But I think that Otter probably does on other, probably newer technology platforms like Toast. So that would be a kind of a more apples to apples comparison.
Thank you.
That's helpful. Yeah, good stuff out there. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the in-store experience. People have mentioned training their staff to make sure they know how to handle third-party delivery drivers that are coming into the store. But what changes have you guys made to your restaurant, your physical space, to make it easier for pickup to happen from third-party delivery? I've seen a lot of signage, right, is a great way to do that. Some cubbies designed to handle those sort of pickups, but what else are you guys doing in your physical space? Eric, you want to go first?
Sure. Even forget the pandemic for a minute. Pre-pandemic, obviously we were seeing a big uptick in third-party delivery and pickup at the restaurants. And what we decided to do, and we forget about anything we've designed new, but anything in existence, brick and mortar, we found an area that we could, and even if we had to lose a table, and we tried not to, we try to keep either all the Dashers, Uber, all them out of the way where they were coming in a separate door or a separate area. We added a POS. We've even, over the last few years, have added handhelds. So we're with NCR Aloha. So we've added the handhelds. And again, they say the closest form of flattery is when you copy something. Well, when you pull up in any drive-through at In-N-Out or Chick-fil-A, they're taking the orders way out in the parking lot. So we put even areas that we do have parking lots, and we were telling the Dashers and putting signs out in the parking lot that stay in your car, we'll come out to you. So we'd even put on an extra person, extra staff, and have them go out, bring the food out there, and make sure. So it was easier for them to stay out of the store and out there where it was best for them, and then staying out of the customer's way. So we made a lot of changes. We made considerable changes, obviously, during the pandemic, but I will say that we learned a lot during the pandemic about how to handle that with the amount of whatever. But we have made changes in our new models that we're looking at. We are doing a separate entrance, separate door, complete separate entrance for those third-party delivery people, and keeping it so where they make it as easy as possible, and usually as we can, facing the parking lot, if possible, of where the location is. But it even changes our mind thought of what, if we're going into an outdoor lifestyle center or a strip center or whatever, which location do we pick? So maybe not front and center on the interior looking at the water fountain. We might want something more on the outside facing the parking lot. So our mindset has changed quite a bit in even picking locations.
That's really great, Eric. I love hearing that. And yeah, the idea of just picking something that's not in front of the fountain, but might be on the side. I mean, minutes and seconds matter to people, right? When it comes to getting that food as fast as possible and as hot as possible. I do want to give a special shout out to Art Goldstein from Southside. Hey, I live behind the South Man Shack location, so it's nice to see you. Great pizza in South Austin and Central Austin. So I appreciate you guys being there. But other changes to stores, I think the physical places for stores has been really helpful too. I've definitely seen that. I've also seen during the pandemic a lot of sort of one-way areas. Either restaurants have carved out, someone broke down a wall actually to build a new door. I don't know, I don't think they ever got it approved by the city, but it basically allowed them for like a short sort of closet area for people to come in. There's a hotline, people just grab it, and then they go out like the exit. And so it's like a one-way sort of small, almost like a coat check kind of space basically inside the restaurant. And so that gives their third-party delivery people a chance to go and find the right order and get moving really quickly, which is nice. I also wonder too, I'm sure you guys have toured Kitchen United centers, right? Yeah, they're great organization, growing really fast. They have sort of put in their front area, sort of a lounge almost for third-party delivery drivers to like hang out, use the bathroom, get a drink for themselves, and just rest for a second. And I wonder, I mean, if you had all the money in the world, right, and you were building a new location, would you consider giving your third-party delivery drivers that kind of experience, or do you not want them to hang out? Would you rather them just wait and then get out of there? Chuck seems to be smiling at that one.
Yeah, well, I will say that we're Chuck may be smiling. No, we don't want them hanging out. At least I can say from Fresh Brothers standpoint, I want everybody hanging out. So I want to get them in and get out. Now, that being said, I think one of the things that we committed to doing early on, especially when there was a surge of third-party drivers, was to feed them and give them water. And I mean, showing a little hospitality. I mean, this is what we do, right? We all are in the hospitality business. We take care of everybody. Is that my attitude is just simply, the more we take care of them, the more they're going to take care of us, and perhaps they'll treat our product and our guests a little bit better along the way. So I don't know how many thousands of bottles of water we've given to third-party drivers, or a soda, or even a pizza if they're hungry. But you know, our attitude has been, let's take care of them and along the way. Now, we've also done a good job, I'm sure, like everybody else has, of in exchange for that, if we have a third-party driver who shows up at our door without a hot bag, we tell them to go back to their car. So there's a give and take. We're going to be hospitable to you, but you better take care of us. And I think we've done a pretty good job of managing that expectation that we have of the third-party drivers. Not perfect, nobody is, but I think that's one of the, may not be a physical store setup. We're not going to put it in a lounge. I certainly not going to drop a pool table in or anything to take care of the third-party drivers, but feeding them like anybody else, like any other vendor we have, feeding them, give them something to drink, make them feel welcome and appreciative of what they do. That's got to come back and have paid its dividend. Our complaints regarding third-party orders has gone down. I mean, I can't say a percentage, but huge over the past few months. And I think part of it is because we're showing some respect and appreciation for what they do. And we're getting it received back. So that's my perspective.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a novel idea, right? Treat them like humans. But you're right. I mean, it is challenging sometimes, especially with as demanding as they can get. One other thing, and I see Lowe's popped back on the video, so I know she's waving me down to let us know it's almost close to that hour. But one thing that I really wanted to advise people, if you have an opportunity to negotiate your contract to try and drive down that commission rate, I know that's a big concern for especially a lot of independent restaurant operators, is utilize the real estate that you have available to you and help them spread their message. So for example, Favor Delivery here in Austin, they have a partnership with P. Terry's, which is a burger chain also based in Austin and growing up and down the I-35 corridor. And they have allowed Favor to actually imprint on their bags that they hand out the window. And it says on the side of it, you know, next time order with Favor, or next time get it delivered with Favor. So they've kind of reversed things. Instead of putting inserts into the bag saying, hey, order through us or whatever, they're going ahead and pushing people towards Favor. And I guarantee you they did not give that away for free. So if you think about that as a commodity that you can use to negotiate whenever you're going into your next contract round, please do so. I mean, you've got, how many sides are there on a pizza box? A lot, several. So, but it gives you an opportunity, and you can even do those stickers or something like that. And that's worth something. So just keep that in mind. Okay, Lo, I know we're close.
Absolutely, but any question or any last comment in the chat, or you can unmute yourself. I just want to give that opportunity before we close up.
Yeah, Kelly, if you're still around, did this help answer some of your questions? I hope maybe it gave you some food for thought, for sure. Excuse the pun.
Someone small like me, it was very, very helpful. It gave me some ideas of how to approach the other local restaurants. And again, we're in a community, we don't have any chains. We have McDonald's and Burger King. Everything else is all locally owned families like myself who have opened up dining, and the dining does very well in our community. But yes, this has been amazing, and I appreciate all the ideas everyone is sharing. For someone little like me, I never try to reinvent the wheel. I always try to see what the big guys are doing and then try to see how I can copy it or mimic it in some way. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for making the time to join us. So I just want to close on saying a massive thank you to Anna. Thank you so much for making the time to be with us. Eric, Jeff, as always, the super band to make it happen. We will have another session in April. So the next session is April 8th. Just wanted to share a few information on the side there as well in terms of some resource. I will put those resources as well in when we send the recording. As always, well, very nice to see everybody, or to see some names and some numbers. Hope it was super helpful, and thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe, and on wishing you a lot of good business in the next few weeks until we get together again. So thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Be well.
Bye.